All right, I'm the Flat Rate Master, and this is Signs Your Shop is About to Go Out of Business. And no, I'm not talking about my old shop or my current shop or anything like that. This is just, there's been a lot of this kind of stuff getting shared with me via social media, and I wanted to talk about it because this could put you in a lot of detriment if, like, for instance, the doors are locked and you can't get your tools. That has happened several times in recent history where the buildings just get locked up. It happened last year with a chain of used car dealers where everyone got bolted up. Technicians could not get their stuff back. You know, I want to educate my audience on the warning signs that something's wrong with where you work. Now, obviously, first one is you show up at work and the doors are locked. Obvious sign, it's probably going out of business. This one is really important because, well, it kind of screw with your life, and that is payroll problems. Now, a one-off, check bounced or didn't go into your bank when it was supposed to can be something as simple as an accounting error, a bank error. Like the old shop, we had a switch of payroll companies and the transition didn't happen completely. So literally you couldn't do anything. So we were kind of in limbo. That's stuff that just happens. Now, I worked with a couple guys that literally every employee, when they got their payroll check, ran to the bank, not to deposit it, to cash it. And there was always bets on whose check would bounce, i.e. they didn't get any money. That's a big sign when you have several problems with payroll. The occasional screw up isn't a big deal. When it happens more than once, that means they don't have money to pay payroll. That's a big problem because if they don't have money to pay payroll, they ain't going to have money to pay rent or other bills. It's probably going to be the sign that something bad's really happening. Next one, part suppliers. Your main supplier is Napa, AutoZone, wherever it's from. And now all of a sudden, a couple weeks into the month, all of a sudden everything is coming from a completely different supplier. One that you don't really buy much from, but all of a sudden everything's coming from there. Then all of a sudden everything's coming from your main supplier again. And that cycle repeats. It means they're cut off by their main part supplier and they're jockeying money around trying to, stay just ahead enough to not get cut off by all of their part suppliers. That's what's happening when you see a huge shift from A part supplier to B supplier and then back to them after a couple weeks. They paid that bill, meaning they can buy from them again. If they can't pay their part supplier, that's a very good indication there's huge money problems going on. Quick note on part suppliers. This might, if it happens once or twice, it might just be they're having a billing problem with the supplier. It happens. But if it's every month and it's all in the same kind of pattern, it's probably not a dispute. It's probably they're just not paying the bill. Let's talk desperate changes. Now, this is one I've seen a lot lately, and that is adding Saturdays, Sundays, extending hours, cutting lunch hours, stuff like that, which you can't cut lunch hours. It's a requirement by federal law. I've seen the memos of cutting lunch hours, requiring you to work during lunch. And these changes usually coincide with switching hourly or hourly commission to flat rate. And that's the next one. Pay changes. Pay changes in an independent shop that are radical are a big indicator of something going on. Now, a shop converting to flat rate because they went to management training might just be a result of that management training. For instance, if a bunch of the things I just talked about are happening and they're switching you to a flat rate, after changing hours and stuff like that, they're trying to minimize payroll. is what they're trying to do. They don't want to pay you to stand around because they can't get enough business in. So that's usually when they switch hourly or hourly commission techs to flat rate, is they're trying to not go out of business. Now with a dealership, things are a little different there. Payroll changes can change dramatically just on personnel changes above. So general manager, shop manager may decide to do it his way. And those are much more common in the dealership arena than the independent side. I just want to make that clear. If you're on the dealership side, it's a lot more common for a new GM to come in and completely screw with everybody's pay. I mean, it's almost never for the benefit of the technicians, but that's a different video. All right. So next one is increasing sketchy sales. What I mean by that is all of a sudden, every car is coming in with, inspections sold on it, services sold on it, et cetera, et cetera. Everything has, oh, why is this car that came in for an oil change wanting a transmission service all of a sudden? Or up, there you write up a car and all of a sudden it's got a bunch of gravy services on it. And that keeps happening. And it's like, what changed? I'm talking about a wholesale change of the entire front staff doing stuff, where all of a sudden there's a whole lot of sketch on every ticket, whether it's upselling stuff that doesn't need to be sold, upselling stuff based on no other reason than it makes them money. That's a sign they're getting desperate for cash flow. When all of a sudden their ethics go out the window, that indicates some kind of sketchy things are going on, and it's definitely a good sign that your ethics are going to require you to go ahead and move on. This next one also can be variable, just simply because how shops are run. Sometimes they'll stop stocking stuff just because they're tired of having to inventory them, et cetera, et cetera. But it's stock running out. All of a sudden you have to order filters. All of a sudden you have to order a case of oil to do an oil change. All of a sudden, the bolt bin is completely empty and you're digging through your bolt bucket trying to find a common bolt because they won't restock stuff. That is very much a common thing for a shop to cut when they're short of cash flow, or they're just being cheap. But 9 times out of 10, when they stop stocking that kind of stuff, when they can't get the oil truck to come in and deliver bulk oil, it's usually because they didn't pay the bill. Bulk oil is a big one. If all of a sudden you can't get bulk oil, or they're on their third bulk oil company, chances are they stop paying them and they ain't got no money, is what I'm saying. All these signs point to they ain't got money, especially bulk oil. The price difference between quart oil and bulk oil is substantial. And if they can't afford to fill the bulk tanks, they ain't going to be able to afford to pay you much longer. Bulk oil is a really good indicator that they are running out of money. All right. Now this last one ties into sketchy sales, because a bunch of the management staff just leave en masse. When you start seeing people that are involved with the shop numbers and how sales are going all of a sudden evaporate, that's a huge sign that there's a lot of problems with the shop. Rats leaving the sinking ship kind of thing. When they're sitting there looking at what the shop's producing versus what it used to. And, most sales guys are numbers guys, and they can see the numbers don't add up. They're going to wander somewhere else. So that's a huge sign. Now, of course, one or maybe two of these may not really point to the kind of problems I'm talking about. But if you have several of these indicators, it's not good for staying there. I'm not going to give you anybody advice on whether or not you should leave. That's entirely up to you. these are just really important things to consider when a shop is going through this kind of stuff, because they may not survive. And, you may find your tools locked up under bank order and having to fight to get your property back, or, other sketchy stuff as they get even more desperate. So just something to keep in mind. I want everybody to work at a good shop and not have to worry about this stuff, but it's out there. So hopefully none of these signs were checked by those in my audience. So as always, thanks for watching. I am the Flat Rate Master.